On today's Apple Daily, HomeOS, macOS names, and HashFlags for WWDC, plus a bunch of your questions, so let's get straight into it. I'm iCave Dave, and I simplify Apple so that everything just works for you, and if you want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours every weekday at 12 UTC, you're in the right place. Plus, I just want to say, yesterday's show, was the title a little bit clickbaity? I don't really think so. There was an apology in there. I thought it was quite funny. But if you thought it was clickbait and you watched it anyway, you're sending me some mixed messages there. But let's get into the news. First of all, welcome home, OS. So revealed by a probably rushed out job posting and quickly changed in the press release, Apple is seeking some new employees to work on HomeOS. They say, you'll get to work with system engineers across Apple, learning the inner workings of iOS, watchOS, tvOS, and HomeOS, and optimizing your code for performance in ways only Apple can. Come join our team and make a real difference for music lovers worldwide. The Apple Music Frameworks team owns the technology stack that enables the system-integrated Apple Music experience on all of our mobile platforms, iOS, watchOS, and HomeOS. And as mentioned above, it was quickly changed to HomePod, but it certainly seems like Apple is looking to expand their smart home devices beyond just audio, as pod in a product name indicates audio. AirPods, podcasts, all that sort of stuff. So this could be to do with the rumoured HomePods with displays. This could be to do with general home automation. Maybe the HomePods or whatever succeeds them comes with built-in routers, so you could have like a mesh network across your house with all of your speakers becoming little Wi-Fi hotspots. Who knows? There's a lot of possibilities here, but I think that's a really good one. And next up, we will be getting our name reveal for macOS version 12 next week at WWDC on Monday, and we have a couple of little clues as to what it could be. So, Apple always registers a huge amount of place names as potential trademarks, so they put all of these into the system just so that people haven't got the information ahead of time, but two have been renewed. This week, Monterey and Mammoth have been renewed as possible names, one for their 4th time and one for the 5th time, so it seems that they really kind of want to keep these alive. Now, if they were to go for Monterey, that kind of feels more like a macOS name to me. For me, if they were to use the word Mammoth, that suggests a massive overhaul, and we got a massive overhaul last year with Big Sur, so unless they've got some massive, huge Mammoth features to announce, that might seem a little bit of a bait for the community of journalists to kind of go, small updates, big name, something like that. So, if they announce Mammoth, I'm expecting big things. iCaveDave.com/merch. And thank you to the guys that did buy it during the sale that we had last weekend. Really appreciate it. We actually had quite a few, a lot more than I expected, which is great. Stuff is not super quick coming out of there because it's all print on demand, but if you bought something, please do post a picture on Instagram or Twitter when you get it and tag me, because I would just love to see these things out there in the wild. And next up, WWDC has its hash flag on Twitter. This is always exciting, and it does actually give us a little bit of a clue about what is coming. So in the past, we've had the like buttons that kind of do an animation that's different when you use a certain hashtag. Not sure if that's going to happen for WWDC, but Apple still clearly likes doing that sort of thing. But the hash flag is basically whenever you type hashtag WWDC21, I think it is, you get a little like icon come up at the end, the same as you get in iMessage. So it's the little blue bubble with the thumbs up inside, which, again, it's pushing us towards iMessage being very important here. Now, there's a possibility that iMessage is going to be expanded into almost its own social network. There's quite a few rumours out there at the moment that Apple might be creating some sort of social network that is very much focused on privacy, which is a very weird concept, but obviously a social network is just about connecting with people, and Apple has made it very clear that they are not happy about the way that data is being used on these social networks in terms of advertising, so maybe there's a way that they're integrating their in-house apps into a system that allows you to see or share your activity with people, but without sharing it with advertisers. So For example, there could be deep integration into music for sharing tracks that you like. There might be deep integration into podcasts to share those episodes. There might be ways within the Photos app that you can share within certain groups your photos, which kind of all of this stuff already exists, but maybe Apple wants to actually bring it a little bit more kind of closed circuit, so that it all works in a particular way. Now, Apple has a very spotty track record when it comes to social networks. They tried to do it for iTunes with a feature I think called Ping, which was where you would get backstage access to certain artists and be able to talk a lot more about the music side of things. Hopefully it's going to be better than that. But don't forget, I am working on an exclusive t-shirt design for WWDC this year, which will only be available for the week of Dub. So if you're interested in that, I'm hopefully going to reveal the design tomorrow. It might take me a little bit more work over the weekend, so we might release it on the community tab. So if you don't have notifications turned on, I'd do that right now and make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you'll get the notifications of what we're doing there. And with no further ado, let's get into iCave Answers. These are your questions. If you want to ask a question, hashtag iCave Answers down in the comments. Again, we've got a lot, so let's fly through them. First up, Andrew Hornback asks, iCave Answers, Dave, you're our last hope. It seems that our 3rd gen iPad is starting to have issues with the home button and the wife wants to replace it. We don't have much to do with it except reading our church bulletins for Sunday AM service. However, seeing one of the newer iPads, the wife is intrigued by the Apple Pencil and the idea of using the iPad as a supplemental display for her, i.e. my old 2015 MacBook Pro. Which non-iPad Pro, non-5G device would you recommend? Thanks. Okay, so you have a couple of options here. Now you can either go for the cheapest of the cheap, the 8th generation iPad, which right now does support Apple Pencil, but it supports Apple Pencil 1 with its really janky charging method where you plug it into the bottom of the iPad. It's not elegant, but it works, so it's an option for you. I'm always worried that someone's going to snap the connector off of it, but I've also not heard of that happening. It just seems like a really poor way of doing it. However, what I would actually recommend, because that 8th generation comes with an A12 processor, which is already a couple of years out of date, 2.5 years out of date at this point, I would recommend going for the iPad Air, the current generation, which is the one that I use here. It's literally my monitor for when I'm making these videos. It has all the design of the iPad Pro, 11-inch, it's a 10.9-inch display. The display is very, very crisp, very enjoyable to use. It's got the A14 inside, so it's as quick as the latest iPhones. In fact, it's a little bit quicker because the graphics, I believe, are about 50% faster. Not quite sure why, because as far as I know, the chip itself is the same, but Geekbench says it's faster. And the big advantage of that is if you do want to go for Apple Pencil, you get to use Apple Pencil 2, which is the magnetically charging one that sticks to the side. It's just a lot more elegant. There's a couple of extra features on that on that Apple Pencil 2, like double tap to switch from drawing to erasing and that kind of thing. Overall, it's a better experience. There are some good discounts out there right now. If I can find one, I will put a link down in the comments for you. But unless you're on a super tight budget, iPad Air is the way that I would go. Alan B. Unboxings and News asks, Apple should put the M1X or M2 in the iPad 9th generation because iPad 8 has an A12 chip. That's why. So we've got a little sequence of questions here, but the first one, M1X doesn't make any sense. It's too powerful. It would destroy the battery in an iPad for starters, because the M1 that's gone in the iPad Pros, which is less powerful than the M1X, so they're not going to put an M1X or an M2 into the cheapest ones. The cheapest ones will get an iPhone chip. They will get an A13 next, A14 the year after that, A15 the year after that. That's how they're going to do it. And also, these iPads are designed to be as cheap as possible. The iPhone chips are much cheaper to make than M1s or M1Xs. So that's just the way it's going to happen. Would Apple put the Apple TV free and not anymore inside of macOS? With this, I'm guessing you mean Apple TV Plus and only have it maybe on the Apple TV boxes, but not something you can watch on the Mac. That doesn't really make any sense either. I know at the minute we've got the free trials are still going on for Apple TV Plus. That's going to end because they've actually got some content on it now, but it won't be a freebie anymore. You'll probably get a short free trial in future, but it's not going to be the full year that we've had in the past, which has turned into 18 months. Why did Apple discontinue the iPod Nano and the iPod Shuffle, and why when they don't sell them anymore? Because nobody buys iPods anymore, because the iPhone has basically replaced that entire category. The Apple Watch is basically the iPod Shuffle, but you wear it on your wrist, or basically an iPod Nano replacement, because you can download your music to it and you can take it with you. The whole point, though, of the iPod Touch is that it works as an independent product now. You don't need to have a Mac for it, because you can download over Wi-Fi. The only difference between an iPod Touch and an iPhone really is that you don't have a cellular connection. The iPod Touch is the only one that's still out there. Might get a refresh, we don't know right now. Did you know that iOS stands for iPhone OS? Yes, that's what it used to be called. They've changed it to iOS because it also covered iPads and iPods, and then they split off iPads into having iPadOS. The iPod still runs iOS. I gave answers. Will Apple announce the iPhone SE Plus and iPhone SE 3 at WWDC 21? Pretty sure that this isn't going to happen. There's always a possibility, but there's been no rumours to that effect really for the past few months. I'm pretty sure that the next iPhone SE that we will see will be next year, around about March time, probably with a A15 chip inside. Next up, Evan Rogers. I gave answers. Any chance we see the new Radeon 6000 graphics in an upcoming Apple laptop or desktop? The only one that has a possibility of getting it would be the Intel Mac Pro that is rumoured to be coming out. It looks like the last gasp of Intel. It also looks like it's only being released potentially because Apple still has a contract with Intel to do something else with some sort of chip. So I think they will put it in a Mac Pro, and then I think they will probably also announce an Apple Silicon Mac Pro right next to it and go, or you can have it with our chips and it'll be much faster. And I think they might even be releasing the Mac Pro and showing it, because they haven't got to really do a huge amount of development work on it, as kind of a way of saying, but look how much faster our stuff can be. There's no way they're going to put AMD into a MacBook Pro or an iMac or anything that runs on Apple Silicon, because they don't need to. Their own GPUs are going to be absolutely all you need. Brian Data asks, I am hanging for the higher end Mini. Starting to hear rumours of no Mini at DubDub. What are you hearing? So this is a weird one. I'm not hearing any rumours that say it's not coming, but I'm also not hearing any that say it is specifically. Obviously, we've seen those leaks via John Prosser. John Prosser himself responded to me asking if it was coming at WWDC, and he's saying he hasn't heard anything about release dates. Now, Mac Mini seems to be a little bit of a weird situation compared to a lot of the other Macs, because even when we had the first Apple Silicon release in November last year, nobody had the right prediction of a MacBook Air and a MacBook Pro and a Mac Mini. The Mac Mini seemed to surprise everyone. I was the only one that said it would make sense for them to bring out a Mac Mini because they've already got the developer transition kit, so they already had all of the stuff in place that they needed. They just needed to put the different board inside it. So I don't honestly know. I would hope so, because it makes sense to bring out the two MacBooks and a desktop of some sort. If that's an iMac, I'll be very, very happy. If it's the Mac Mini, I'll be very, very happy. If it's both, I'll be very, very happy. Eliza Aquino, with so many iPod rumours and Apple going retro, do you think that this is one product line Apple will bring back? So right now, the iPod hasn't even left. You can still buy iPods directly from Apple, brand new. I think they're $200, something like that. I don't know why they would. As I say, we've mentioned this on a few shows now. The only reason would be Apple lossless, because you're not streaming it as such. Giving it as an option for someone that wants to download some music, doesn't want to clutter up their iPhone particularly. I think in the lossless format, I think each track is about 50 megabytes, which is quite big compared to about 3 normally for an AAC track. So you might not want to fill up your entire iPhone with that, but maybe if you had a dedicated device that you keep in the car, that something like that, that might be a reason for it. If it's got the DAC built into it so that it can actually output really high quality audio, there's a possibility for that. I can see them doing it. I don't know if there's a business case for it though. Marcin Kowalczyk asks, would you concur that T6000 may be an M1X CPU in an iMac, M1X half a Mac Pro but the same node? Now, I think that all of the M1X are going to be built on the same node. They're going to be built on the same node that M1 is built on right now, which is the 5nm process. I don't think they're going to be on an advanced or a 5nm plus. Doesn't really make any sense to me, but I don't know. I do think, though, that the M1X is going to be half of the chip that goes into the base Mac Pro and a quarter of the chip that goes into the high-end Mac Pro. I think it's literally going to be 4 of these SoCs kind of built into one chunky boy processor. A. Hughes asks, iCave answers, Amazon Prime Day 2021 has just been announced for 21st and 22nd of June, and it's likely that Apple's annual back-to-school education promotion will likely happen in July as usual this year. Do you think it's likely that any of the hardware announced this week will be discounted in either of these promotions? Also, does Apple give better warranties or after-sales support if you buy direct from their website or stores versus via Amazon or other retailers? Cool, interesting questions there. Now, Amazon quite often starts discounting Apple stuff immediately, but it's not by a huge amount, so it might be $50, maybe up to $100. There's a possibility that we might see some of these things discounted on Amazon. There's not going to be deep discounts on Prime Day. In terms of the back-to-school promotions, Apple's education discount generally applies straight away on pretty much everything, but they don't discount particularly for back to school. They normally offer something for free, whether that's AirPods for free with any Mac purchase, or something along those lines. So those are the possibilities. And then in terms of warranties and after-sales support, no, if you buy an Apple product, if it's within warranty period, which is I think a year of direct and 2 years, it depends where you are in the world more than anything else, but Apple will look after you regardless of where you bought the thing from, because it's still their thing. The only difference, I believe, is, as I say, based on where you happen to be in the world. Certain countries require longer warranties on things than others. However, Apple support is generally great, and anything that goes wrong with your product, I was on the phone to Apple support that they were helping me out for free with a 2007 MacBook the other week, because I was trying to get macOS Lion to load onto it that I'd just bought from them. I was trying to get all that. They are really good. Peter Holdman, do you think that WWDC will go back to an all-in-person format, stay virtual, or some sort of hybrid in the future? I know there was talk of the benefits of the virtual format bringing it to more people, but in-person has some strong benefits too. Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be in-person events going forward from Apple once it's safe enough to do so. From their point of view, from their own risk assessments, because you've got to remember that Apple is bringing people in from all over the world, journalists, developers, and they need to make sure that they're not liable as much as anything else for people getting sick from coming to their events. So it's important for Apple that everyone is safe. They've been very good with their employees as well. I believe in September they're coming back like 3 days a week into the offices. But yes, there is certainly advantages to in-person, but I do think there will be a digital element that stays going forward, because the amount of new developers that have been brought into the program by the digital WWDCs and these digital events is huge. The app economy through the App Store grew by 24% last year, because there's so many more developers that have got access to things, as well as people just being at home using their devices more. Elisa Aquino asks, do you think the new iMac Pro will have HDR? I definitely think that all of the new Macs eventually will get the XDR displays. I don't know if the brand new 27-inch replacement, whether that's 30 or 31.5 or 32 inches, is going to get it in this first generation. That's the only thing that's kind of a question mark, and it's more about, do they have the manufacturing capacity to make them at that scale at this point with good enough yields? I think the reason that the Pro Display XDR that we have right now is as expensive as it is because when they're making panels like that, there are a lot that fail and aren't up to scratch. Now, I don't think that the consumer panel is going to be as good as the Pro Display XDR at this stage. But even if it is, it's not going to be cheap. John Malkin asks, iCav answers, since Justin Long has sold his soul to Intel, do you think that Apple would use the UK PC and Mac actors at WWDC? I would love to see a John Hodgman arguing with David Mitchell on which processor brand was inside, and Robert Webb saying, well, I just have Apple Silicon. Yeah, so if you guys aren't aware, in the States, we had our own actors for Mac versus PC over here, a comedy duo called Mitchell and Webb, that did shows called Peep Show and a few other things over here. They are hilarious, and they are also perfect for Mac versus PC, although I would say Robert Webb not quite as cool as Justin Long was back in the day, in terms of cool points, but they work perfectly. So if you've not checked those out, I will leave some links down in the description. But the UK versions were great. I would love to see them bring them over, but I don't know if it's iconic enough to use for the worldwide stuff. But I can't imagine Apple isn't going to give some sort of a jab at Mac versus PC and Justin Long. I really hope they do, because I like it when Apple gets a little bit salty. Jim McKinn's Boylan asks, iCave Answers, hi Dave. When do they normally do the and finally announcements? Is it likely to be at the end of the keynote on the 7th or at the end of the week on the 11th? Your loyal subject, Jim. So, typically any of the really juicy stuff, any of the one more things will come during the keynote. Just for context, everyone, the WWDC is not just a keynote, it's a whole week of developer sessions and stuff like that, which will be going on all the way through to the 11th. But in general, all the big announcements are done during the keynote. What happens for the rest of the week, though, is that we do hear about more of the core technologies, more of the how this thing works that we've been hearing about, and I think that's what Jim's talking about. So, no, they won't be doing another kind of big announcement at the end of the week in general. Never say never, but if they have a big announcement, whether it's Apple Glass or whether it's, Reality OS or something along those lines, that would all be crammed into the keynote at the beginning. And actually, the keynotes for these tend to be a bit longer. I think last year's was around 2 hours. They're quite chunky. And Team Kinetics asks, what are your thoughts on big tech review channels being compared to QVC? There seems to be a shift in popularity towards smaller tech channels because they appear more honest. It's hard to appear objective when a brand is sending you free kit or even paying for features. Do you think the big channels are less honest than the small ones? So I think what you're referring to here is there was a series of videos from Tech Lead, which is a guy who says he's a former Facebook and Google engineer. Every video that he does, the title ends in brackets, as a millionaire. And honestly, I'm not sure if he's a satire channel, or if it's real, or if he's a real human, or if he's a character. But I know this was also featured on the Genius Bar podcast. They were talking about what he was saying about, and I understand what he means. So I love a lot of the big channels. I love Marquez, I love iJustine, I love a lot of those big channels, and I see what he's saying, but it's not really true. So iJustine definitely does more features where she is sent stuff to kind of feature, rather than being a reviewer as such. And I think iJustine is maybe one of the ones where it's a little bit harder to tell whether she's giving her feedback on something or if it's a paid promotion. And I think that's just because she is so enthusiastic about everything in tech. She's very, very excitable. Whereas if you go to Marquez, he does get sent stuff, he reviews it, but he always gives quite honest feedback, and he always includes some negatives in stuff if he has negatives for it. Like, for example, with the new iMacs, he is not keen on the bezels, he's not keen on certain other aspects of it, and he says that very clearly. Now, one of the things I think that's important to remember is that Apple doesn't send free products to anyone. What they do is they send out review units to people, which are then returned. They are not given as gifts, they are not given indefinitely, they are given for a set period of time and then they must be returned. So Apple is not essentially paying for this promotion. They don't pay the reviewers or the influencers to put stuff out, but they do give them early access, which I guess you could see as a form of payment, because although they're not getting something of value to keep, they are getting early access to that thing, which will give them the opportunity to make videos that will get a lot of views, which is how they get paid. So it's a difficult one, because you have to think that they're not going to necessarily rip these things apart and be very negative about something that they've been sent to review by one of these big companies, because they also want to be sent the next thing. I'm not saying that they're not impartial, I'm just saying that the incentives are a little bit mixed. And it's very much like what happened with the PC game market, where I think it was Nvidia, don't quote me on this, that wasn't going to send hardware to a certain channel anymore because they weren't focusing on the right thing in their reviews. I want to say it was like Tech Unboxed or something along those lines. I know that Linus Media Group were talking about it a lot. I know that Gamers Nexus were talking about it a lot. But basically, they were being told that if you don't focus on what we want you to focus on these videos, you won't be sent the thing to review anymore early on, and you won't get access to all the information about the products. And that is when it becomes quite difficult to be objective from the channel's point of view. Now, I have been sent a few things in the past. I've always told you when I've been sent them, free of cost to myself. So there's things like the car mount that we had from ESR. I genuinely think it's a really good product. It's still in my car. I still use it every day. There was some iPad cases that they sent really early on. They were the first people to send me anything to review, which was really appreciated, because when you're a very small channel, you don't tend to get stuff sent to you very often. But just for context, from my previous stuff that I've been doing online with Bartender HQ, when I was talking about the drinks industry, which is where I work now, part of the reason I don't really do Bartender HQ anymore is because I work for certain brands, so I'm not particularly objective. The reason that I don't want to necessarily work with Apple on stuff is because I do want to stay objective, and I want to be able to tell you the truth about the products that come in. But yeah, as context, even just from what I used to do with Bartender HQ, I got a massive box arrived the other day. I was like, where's this come from? It came from Heaven Hill Distillery in the United States. They sent it over, and it's this big gift pack that includes a bottle of their Evan Williams whiskey, a branded face mask, glassware, all that sort of stuff that just arrived. I hadn't been asked if I wanted these things, but obviously I've registered for their press briefings before, and they've just sent it over as a kind of, you might like this. So it certainly does happen. I've been sent a handful of AirTags accessories by some people, and also bought some cheap ones off eBay, because I want to kind of go through like what are your options with AirTags, so we'll be doing that soon as well. But you'll be told if someone sent me something to show you. That's just the way that I work. It's the way that everything should work, and anything that's a paid promotion should be labelled as such. So I do want to make sure that my reviews are as honest as possible. This has been too long and rambly about reviews, but I think it is an important topic, and I think it is something that needs to be talked about, and I think a lot of people are talking about it. I don't think anyone's really keeping secrets from you. So that's it for today's video. Thank you so much, guys. There will be another video tomorrow. I'm going to be out and about all day. I do not know if I will be in the live chat today. If I'm not, I'm sorry. I will try to be if I can. Love and kisses, everyone. Speak soon.